ChatGPT, large language models, or LLMs for short, are some of the most powerful and most capable artificial intelligence models we've created to date. And a big reason for that is simply because they're incredibly large. For reference, an enterprise LLM like ChatGPT 4o is so massive that even if I were to multiply my graphics card by 100 times, I still don't think I'd be able to run that thing locally, and I don't know if I'm even close. The sheer size of the model is what makes it so smart, and to demonstrate that, I've downloaded a handful of open source LLMs that are way smaller that I'm able to run on my local machine, but are still capable enough to generate some interesting text. Now, these models were all trained on the same datasets, they all share the same underlying architecture, the only difference being the amount of parameters that they have, or their size. The first input we're going to test these models on is the phrase, "the fisherman set aside his rod." We're going to cut it off right there and see what these models generate and come up with. Now, as a person, if I were to ask you what comes after this, you might say this is a good chance to build out an environment, set up a scene, or even develop the character of the fisherman. Who knows? But if we see any of those things, we can be pretty sure that the model is making sense. Alright, I got the output back from all three models and I pasted them in this notepad. The smallest model is struggling. It's not making very much sense at all. It's talking about genitalia, and maybe got set off by the fisherman's rod, but I can guarantee you we weren't trying to, that's not what we were talking about. Maybe 1 in 100 chance, but very bad guess regardless. Talking about something about over 300 years ago when they first met, like I don't see how a fisherman can live up to 300 years. Like maybe it's not even taking that into account. Maybe because of his very powerful rod, I don't know. The woman is always happy. The sentences just don't make very much sense. They don't flow into each other very well at all. The medium-sized model does a lot better. Like it sets up a scene, they're on a boat, they're somehow in India. It's better than the first model, but it still doesn't make too much sense and it lacks structure, it lacks like flow. This is where the 1.4 billion parameter model really shines. It's got a lot more structure, you know, it's got dialogue, it splits things up into paragraphs and even chapters. As you can see, it does a really good job painting a picture with these words, a lot better than both the medium-sized model and the smallest model here. So yeah, model size goes up, model intelligence goes up, but right now all it's doing is autocomplete. Let's see if we can get it to act like an actual AI assistant, like ChatGPT or Cloud. Now, Cloud and ChatGPT have been further trained specifically to follow instructions and be more helpful or conversational. These are base models, so they're just pure auto-completing machines, but there's a way to get them to act more like a certain character. If I wanted to ask this model a question, like how do I build a custom PC, I can't just input that question because what I'm going to get is a bunch of gibberish it thinks is most likely to come after this question. Because remember, it's an auto-completing machine. To get an actual answer to my question, I have to format it in like a question answer format and have it try to generate what it thinks the answer would be in this case. And it does that, and it's at least an answer. To make this even better, we can lay out examples of how this character would respond in this situation, and then the final question that we give it, we'll just cut off its response and have it generate as if it was this character. So here are the outputs. The smallest model, again, not making very much sense. Getting a little bit philosophical, speaking in tongues. Second model is acting more like a helpful AI assistant, but it's not following the format, and you can definitely not build a computer with Photoshop or Illustrator or any Adobe tool for that matter. We're talking about a physical computer here. The third one is not so much about how to build a computer, but how to buy one and install Windows on it. But hey, at least it makes more sense, and it's following the format that we provided. Alright, so I wanted to see if these models could play different characters, not just this AI assistant character that we've laid out, or maybe a wizard instead, or a tsundere girlfriend, if you know what that is. Tried that, didn't work out too well. It lacks like the soul or the character of how a character like that would respond. And I thought maybe that was because of the parameter limit. It's a small model still, 1.4 billion parameters. So I want a Hugging Face, set up an endpoint, and ran the 12 billion parameter Pythia model. Again, same architecture, same datasets. Tried that. Still, it lacks that like understanding of the character almost to be able to inject that the nuance of how that character would respond in its output. So I thought maybe it was a problem with the data set, and the data set wasn't expressive enough or didn't include enough characters for the model to really build an understanding of how different people talk and stuff. I went and I set up a remote GPU, put Mistral 7 billion parameter models version 0.1 on there, base model still, tested it with all my inputs. Yes, it's a base model for sure. Finally tested the girlfriend prompt. Didn't work out too well. Again, I don't know why. I didn't even like try to make this seem like it was a person. It just listed out a bunch of items to do. Really weird. So as a last ditch effort, I downloaded the bigger version of Mistral 7B, which is the 24 billion parameter model. Again, still another base model, and this time it worked. It worked. It really had a lot better of an understanding of like how different characters talk. Got a wizard over here. Got an ancient knight in shining armor, and the tsundere girlfriend also works quite well. So that was what I was doing for like a good 4 hours. So that was a bit about how these base LLMs work. You scale up the model size, you get emergent capabilities, you get some sort of intelligence going on. I won't say intelligence, just it does its job better. It gets a lot better at its job. And yeah, it was certainly interesting for me. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.